Hello everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat. Everybody, Cantonese Cat here. I'm going to go through some pretty quick things here as fast as I can and give you an overall view in terms of what I think about the market. There is a gap down here for the S&P 500 SPY index as well as the Nasdaq 100 index fund, the QQQ, that everybody's been looking. Everybody thinks that it's probably going to get filled at some point. I just don't know when that's going to be, or maybe this is one of those runaway gaps that's just never get filled. But overall, this market right now is full risk on. You just had a V-shaped recovery here for SP 500 SPY fund and the QQQ fund. And QQQ actually looks like it's outperforming SP 500 here. If you do a ratio between the two of QQQ over SPY, you can actually see on a higher time frame there is a lot of outperformance with a three white soldiers pattern over here of this QQQ SPY ratio chart, meaning that QQQ has been outperforming the S&P 500 to the point that the Bollinger Band initially was squeezing here because the S&P 500 has basically been on par with QQQ for about 2 years, and that led to no volatility here of this QQQ over SPY chart, and that led to Bollinger Band squeeze here, which eventually lead to expansion and pick a direction. The direction seems to be up, so it looks like QQQ is outperforming the SPY over here for the foreseeable future, and that's going to be more of a risk-on behavior because the last time when that did not happen, when the QQQ underperforms SPY, was basically this big giant downtrend here in 2022. Beyond that, we've been having QQQ basically just outperforming SP 500 during the entire secular market for the last decade and a half to 2 decades. So this is something that's very, very important to consider here. The other thing also very important to consider is just looking back at the weekly here, you can see how so far the QQQ this week has done absolutely nothing, and the S&P 500 has done absolutely nothing at this all-time high, but IWM is having some major catching up here. This is generally risk-on behavior, and when IWM is catching up, that generally means that the bull market may be starting to really heat up here, and we are really starting to have some euphoric sentiment there coming. I think that we still have some room to kind of run up here before we see some major resistance here with IWM, even break above this trend line here if you're into the look at trend line kind of thing. But you can also look at the Ichimoku. Initially I was a little skeptical about the breakout, but currently looks like we're really breaking into the Ichimoku cloud over here. Looks like it wants to go a lot higher, and you're going to end up hitting some resistance, maybe a few more dollars up here above. But overall, this is a risk on sentiment, and overall this is not anything bearish here that I'm seeing. The ARK fund, Cathie Wood's fund, has been doing extremely well. And basically last month it closed with a Matabazu candle, which is basically a candle without any wicks. Above and below it stands for a bold monk in Japanese. And generally when you have these bold monks, you're going to have continuation of the primary trend, which in this particular case is going to be up. Last time we had this Matabazu candle here, worked out pretty well. It didn't really go like sky high or anything like that, but it has some bullish continuation afterwards. This time I think we're probably going to have some bullish continuation up here to the ARK, right? It's been following this 45-degree angle here perfectly. So I think we might be hitting resistance up soon, but I don't think we're necessarily quite there quite just yet. A lot of people are wondering about yields. We've been talking about yields here for a long time. 2-year yields have been extremely weak. It's been basically under a negative sloping 20-month moving average. This is looking like it wants to keep going down here. Even look at the 10-year is really starting to lose some momentum here because 20-month moving average initially very, very, very upsloping. Now it's really flat here. You can see it's been forming a little bit of a triangle here, but you're losing strength here on the 10-year as well, right? The VIX has been less than 20 for currently, which allows price to keep going up, and the risk appetite is coming back right now. The other thing to talk about is gold. Gold right now is entering a strong resistance zone that I'm seeing here. Last time when it entered a resistance zone that was very, very important was back in August 2020, where it got rejected here. It basically got under a very, very important GAN arc over here. You can see how these are very important resistance levels, right? Like whenever you enter a horizontal zone or GAN arc, you end up getting stuck there for quite some time before breaking out. Sometimes you end up getting rejected and end up coming back down here for quite some time. You're talking about almost a whole decade over here, forming a big giant cup, eventually break out over here after handle. Currently what we're seeing right now is that we see these 3 wicks up here above. There's a lot of resistance up here above. I think gold is getting close to having a lot of weakness over here. What happened when you had weakness over here back in August 2020? Well, let's take a look at it. IWM from August 2020, as soon as gold stops running up higher, IWM just moonshot it, right? So that is kind of wondering whether or not we're seeing very, very similar thing. Gold is getting a little weakness over here. Does it mean that IWM, which is the small cap, stocks, which is basically the risk on appetite indicator. Doesn't mean that you're going to end up having some moonshot over here, kind of like you did over here. We don't know, or maybe this time's a little bit more of a slower burn, but this certainly seemed to be favorable for risk on appetite. Now, talking about all that, I just really want to talk about Bitcoin here. Talking about Bitcoin, you're going to do a few time frames here. First, I'm going to go do a little bit more of like a daily time frame. And when it comes to a daily time frame here, I can just say that currently we have a bullish engulfing candle. Day's not closed yet, but this bullish engulfing candle is very similar to this bullish engulfing candle that engulfed multiple bearish candles over here. Here we're basically having the same thing, engulfing these two candles over here. We end up closing the day just like it is right now. Then this would have a lot of favoring of for bullish continuation. You look at a Bollinger Band here, you can see how you're having a little bit of a hard time being above because you simply haven't had that daily Bollinger Band expansion much as yet, but it did end up bouncing off of the 20-day moving average here. You did end up oscillating around here, up and down, eventually able to reclaim the 20-day moving average. If we really truly were hitting 20-day moving average and we're having a little bit of a Bollinger Band expansion here, then daily can continue to go up over time, but it will take time for it to do that. Look at the weekly too. Weekly actually also look very, very bright. It didn't even bother coming back down, touch the 20-week moving average. If you also look at Ichimoku here, even the last week I mentioned about this possibility that we're going to go up higher. We end up having a bullish engulfing candle last week, and this week we had a little bit of a scare here initially, but so far we got a wick here, and looks like we are potentially, if the week closed the way it is right now, which again we have another few days to do, but if we end up closing the way it is right now, then this week could potentially be an all-time high close for the week. We'll continue to monitor the situation. They have to close about this candle over here, so price we have to end up closing above 109,000, and if we end up closing above 109,000, then this would be all-time high weekly close for Bitcoin. We just had all-time high monthly close for Bitcoin last month. That was all-time high there back in June of 2025, just last month. Here, what's happening? Well, I think we were a little bit overextended here away from the Tenkan and Kitchen line over here. It was waiting to touch the Tenkan here before going up. We just did that, so I think we're going to end up pushing up a lot higher. I see this as very, very similar to what we're seeing over here. Seeing what we're seeing over here. Sometimes you just need to kind of get into the Tenkan or hug the Tenkan before going up higher, and I think we are already doing that. And this is a pretty good setup for Bitcoin to kind of keep going up higher over time. If you're looking at the weekly GAN that I have, I'm going to show you this GAN I've been really following since really late last year. I didn't really change anything. I just kind of let it be after I drawn this. And just look at the market symmetry, how beautiful it is. Each of these arc basically serving this perfect resistance here, resistance here. But I got euphoric over here. I said, we're not going to push through here. And next thing you end up getting rejected. You end up getting below this angle over here. But yeah, we push through the angle, push back above, back test the arc over here perfectly about 3 or 4 weekly candles over here with this wicks up here, and then we push back above the angle up here. And I'm just going to zoom in and kind of give you a little bit of a look here to see how precise this is. You can see how sometimes when you have a back test here is almost very, very precise, right? Rejection is perfect over there, another perfect rejection up there, another perfect rejection over here. Push through, back test, perfect back test. We just had a perfect back test here last week, and so far what did we do? We pushed back above, had a bullish engulfing candle, and we're back testing an angle here, and guess what? We back tested it perfectly right at the angle after turning it from resistance here to support. Guess where we're going to go next? We're going to end up going up to the horizontal line up here, which is going to be around 117 to 118,000. Based on the scan chart over here, would be the next level that would be reasonable for it to go. If you're looking at the FIB levels, you can see the previous all-time high here and a cycle high to the cycle low. You just do a FIB sequence over here. You can see that we had a little bit of a tough time trying to break above the 1.272 lock fib. We haven't been able to break above that, and right now we look like we are above that. And if that works out, if we were able to push for that resistance level I was showing you around 117, 118,000, then the next level is going to be 128,000, would be a next little natural level for it to go to. Now, this is a very, very risk-on environment based on all these indicators I was showing you, based on all these other things I was showing you earlier. And on top of that, if you also look at Bitcoin dominance, it's been hitting or getting close to hitting a very, very important resistance zone here, which is 0.176 log or linear fib. From the cycle high to the cycle low, we're getting close. Essentially, I think we already hit that as far as I'm concerned. Can we keep on trying to smash it and try to break through? It's always possible, but there's another thing that I also think that might be telling us that we could be nearing the end over here, which is to look at the yearly candle. If you look at the yearly candle for the Bitcoin dominance, and Bitcoin dominance, the higher it goes, that means that Bitcoin is dominating, and that's not exactly necessarily what you want to see. In a bull market, if it ends up plummeting down, usually Bitcoin dominance going down means that altcoins are performing extremely well. So this is when altcoins perform extremely well. This is when Bitcoin outperformed, and it wasn't necessarily a bullish, period during this time. And this is when altcoins outperform, right? So far, we have 3.5 years of Bitcoin kind of outperforming, and we really simply haven't had that risk appetite to really have altcoins being rotated into. But so far over here, it looks like it was a falling 3 pattern, because fall 1, 2, 3 candle, not able to break above this candle over here, fall, right? This is a bearish engulfing candle, which is generally what happens over here with these falling 3 methods. Here we have a falling 4 methods here. So far we have the 4th yearly candle. This is only really half a year. It hasn't really closed yet, but this is a 4th yearly candle. That's inside candle over here. Not able to break above this candle over here. The next move is going to be pretty significantly down. I don't know when that's going to happen. Nobody knows when that's going to happen, and that's okay. Looking at Ethereum, this is going to be the market indicator in terms of how it's doing. Even though people are saying that Ethereum is dead, it is still the queen of crypto right now. Ethereum is still 9.3% of the overall cryptocurrency market, and you cannot really have a lot of stable coins being put in place if you don't have a good Ethereum risk appetite for the altcoin season and for the alt markets to really run. What are we seeing here? We see a bull flag over here. We see this green candle over here, and followed by 4 yearly inside candles right now. It's just been consolidating, forming a bull flag. It does look like price wants to push up, and this is some huge consolidation over here. With this being inside candle, with 4 inside candles over here to this one, the primary trend so far is what? Higher highs, higher lows. It looks like it wants to kind of bust out above whenever it is ready to get done to do so, right? This is the Ethereum dominance, and the Ethereum dominance hasn't really been looking that great here on this time frame, but we have bounced off of this very, very, very nicely. If you look at the Ethereum dominance, and this also goes along with Ethereum as well, but the Ethereum dominance, you look at the 20-week moving average, you finally reclaiming it. You haven't really claimed it for almost like close to like a whole year, and you finally are trying to reclaim that. So you might have a little bit of a trend change. So you look at Ethereum itself, it definitely looks like it was reclaiming the 20-week moving average. So I do wonder whether or not we're going to have some, maybe a little bit of reverse trend up here, depending on how it goes. Also, last month we end up closing on top of the monthly Ichimoku cloud, almost exactly where it is. So that tells me that, hey, the battle is over. It looks like the bulls have won last month, and we still need to battle this level up here around 28,000. And once we break through 2750 convincingly, I think that we're going to have some pretty decent risk on going on here as well. But unfortunately, Ethereum is still lagging, and that's okay. Sometimes you just have to identify where the opportunities are. Finally, I'm going to talk about a few things here. I'm going to talk about MSTR. This is a monthly MSTR chart. Do I think that this is bearish? No, because the Tenkin continues to point up on the monthly here, and it continues to serve as support right now. It's serving as support right now. Whenever things get broken down underneath the Tenkin and Kijun over here, that's when I get worried. But so far, we are not. We're riding up the Tenkin on the way up in a staircase manner. So far, there's really nothing particularly bearish about this. Even looking at the weekly chart here, all it's doing is bounce off the Ichimoku cloud here, got a little bit too far too fast, went sideways, touched the Ichimoku cloud here. I think it's getting ready to go up here again, so I'm not really bearish on MicroStrategy here at all. I'm actually quite bullish on MicroStrategy here moving forward. The only thing is been moving up way too far, way too fast, so it might end up lagging behind some of the things that haven't really ran quite just yet. This is Coinbase on a weekly chart. It also did the same thing, bounced off the cloud here twice. This is wave 2. I think this is an Elliott wave flat here that I've shown previously, and I think this is wave 1. I think this is wave 2. I think wave 3 is about to come. Some pretty risk on sentiments probably end up coming here for Coinbase. They also said that I mentioned that I think this is a launching pad, and right now we've launched up here, which so far has been working out very, very well, but we're just simply waiting for the Bollinger Band to expand. We haven't really had the Bollinger Band expand yet, so Coinbase might end up getting to a level where it might need to kind of lag behind unless there's some pretty impressive green candles happening and it's kind of expanding the Bollinger Band up. Then I think we will continue to have some pretty decent risk reward ratio here. I had a video this past weekend about the 0.886, and about how, you know, we break about the 0.86, then generally things get very, very bullish. Well, we broke about the 0.86 over here on Coinbase, and it looks like it probably ended up forming some all-time high pretty soon for the rest of 2025. Doesn't mean it's going to happen tomorrow. Doesn't mean it's going to happen next week. Nobody knows. I think that regardless, I'm pretty bullish on what Coinbase can do moving forward. I'm also very bullish on what the miners are doing too. In addition to 0.886 log fib, sometimes things break about the 0.786. That could also lead to a very, very good risk-on environment for all-time highs to form. This is Iron. Iron is doing that. It broke above the 0.786 and is still staying above the 0.786. Is above the 20-month moving average. Is currently back above the Tenkan Kijun up here. So the only thing is it's also waiting for the Bollinger Band here to expand before going up higher. You sometimes simply you just need to kind of cool down. Right now, the weekly Bollinger Band is above the 0.786, but it's also outside the weekly Bollinger Band, which is the reason why Iron has a hard time really kind of push up here. Today, when everything else was going green, Iron was kind of lagging behind. This is the reason why that is. Now, looking back at the other miners, some of the major miners that we've been looking at is CleanSpark. CleanSpark ended up having something that is very, 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 very nice happen to it. One thing that happened to it, well, first of all, is trying to reclaim the 20-month moving average. It looks like it's probably going to be doing that. But right now we're having a little bit of weakness because we end up getting a little bit of rejection there. I think it's going to push through. We'll see, give it some time, let it do its thing. But the thing is, it entered the Ichimoku cloud here. It's also hitting a little bit of the Tenkan resistance over here. We need to break about the Tenkan before going higher. This is a very important resistance level, and right now we're hitting it for the first time for a very long time. We need to push through. Once we push through and once we push to the baseline up here, then the next target I think is going to be the top of the Ichimoku cloud up here, which the top of the Ichimoku cloud happened to be coincidentally at the 0.786 where we got rejected here last time. Once we push through 0.786, then some of the higher targets are possible, but we're not going to talk about all that quite just yet. I do think that we need to break about the 0.618, break about the Tenkan over here, break about the baseline up here, then 0.76 we go. Probably going to get rejected over here, probably need to come back down, figure things out for a remainder of 2025 before pushing throughout sometime in 2026. Probably more patience would be needed because it's the first time for a long time where we're actually breaking inside Ichimoku cloud convincingly, but we're still underneath a lot of resistance here, so be a little bit more careful. Mara is also playing some major catch-up. It's not even at the cloud. It's not even at the Tenkan and Kijun quite just yet, but if you do, not necessarily the cycle high and the cycle low, but if you do from the previous cycle low over here to the all-time high here, we've basically been stuck in the golden pocket area between 0.618 and between 0.786 here, building a lot of energy to do either break down or break out. So far, we're bouncing perfectly here, 0.618 here. I think overall, Mara looks like it wants to break up above. So we're going to have to just kind of let it do its thing. And whenever it's ready to do its thing, it's going to do its thing. I can't really force it to do anything it doesn't want to do quite just yet, right? The thing about it is, if you're also looking at the other fib levels up here, I'm going to pull out the 0.382, 0.5. It bounced off the 0.3, the 382 here perfectly. And right now we're reclaiming 0.5, even though I rejected here over the last 2 months, we're reclaiming that right now, right? The other thing too is there's still a lot of levels to break above, such as the Tenkan Kijun up here above, the 0.618. And if we break above all this and we enter the cloud, guess where the top of the cloud is? Just like CleanSpark is at 0.786, around $41.28. Interesting formation here, but it's forming a little bit of reversal here. Let's do its thing. It may nothing crazy would happen this year. Probably we probably need to end up going into next year and see how far, if it pushes about the 0.786 all-time high, not all-time highs, but above this high over here, triple digits. If we don't push about the 0.786, that could be the cycle high and that could be it. So we'll see what happens, right? Cypher, what's going on? Broke above the Tenkan Kijun, broke above the 0.618 here, and it looks like we're breaking inside the immature Ichimoku cloud here of the leading span A is what this line is called here on Ichimoku. Looks like we probably end up having more room to kind of revisit this $7 zone over here, which is very, very strong resistance here, 0.76 over here. Just a strong resistance level here in general. So yeah, I think it's probably going to be grabbing back up to that level and see what it does there when we get there. I'm going to let it do its thing. Wolf is trying to break above the 0.5, having a little hard time doing so. It also got some resistance up here above, but this is a very, very strong reversal of great morning star pattern. We'll see how long it takes to break above all of this 0.618, get to the cloud and get up there again. Nothing's probably going to drastically happen in 2026 to really make like these crazy highs or anything like that. We'll see what 2026 will bring it to us, but I just want the remainder of 2025 2025 to repair this technical damage that it has done, right? BTBT, what's going on? Well, it's still underneath the 0.382. That's okay. Ethereum is also lagging behind, and BTBT is really switched to an Ethereum strategy here. So yeah, we'll just keep on slowly, maybe accumulate around this resistance zone up here. And maybe once it breaks above, we have a low resistance level that needs to be challenged, but I think this is probably going to end up being more dependent on what Ethereum is going to do anyway moving forward. Riot has reclaimed the Tenkan up here. Riot is looking better. Riot is, if you look at the Fibonacci's over here, reclaim 0.382. Riot is looking better, but again, still have a lot of resistance. Like a baseline up here, 0.5, 0.618, bottom of the cloud, top of the cloud. Interesting, top of the cloud, where is it at? 0.786. It breaks about 0.786, possibly some, triple digit action up here. But if it ends up getting to 0.786 and doesn't push through, that could be a cycle high right there. We'll see. HUD8, very bullish, trying to reclaim the 0.382, 0.5, reclaim the baseline up here. So far getting rejected here at the conversion line or Tenkan up here. I think it's going to pushing through eventually sometime in 2025. I think it's going to enter the cloud up here probably. We'll see, one thing at a time, but I'm pretty bullish here on HUD8. It just looks like it's basically just forming a channel on the way up here. There's really nothing particularly bearish about HUD8 here. Cores, very nice, almost forming all-time highs here. That's all I really need to say. Bitdeer, a little bit of a laggard here now, but overall, very nice, trend line on the way up here. I don't even bother drawing it. The 20-month moving average is still pointing up here, is still being reclaimed, but we are underneath some technical resistance up here as well. So basically, all of these miners are doing very, very similar things. Bitfarms, unfortunately, has been a downtrend, but guess what? We're forming a little bit of a bullish engulfing candle here so far. It's usually a laggard. Even last cycle here was a little bit of a laggard. The rest of the stuff really started mooning around like October, November, but Bitfarms didn't really start doing that until like a month later. So it's probably going to end up being a laggard this cycle. But if we end up closing a month with a bullish engulfing candle, this could be the bottom, and we could end up having a trend reversal going on the way up here. We will see. So those are some of the stocks I want to kind of show you here. A couple other ones I want to show real quick. I do think that SBET is an interesting play, although I do think that it's probably going to having a little bit more consolidation here. Is still underneath the 20-month moving average. Whenever something's underneath the 20-month moving average, I'm still a little bit more cautious. So even though we made like 28% move today, I'm still a little bit more cautious on here. I still wonder whether or not it's just going to end up going sideways up here and not push through that fast, right? So we'll have to be a little bit more cautious here. Now, another thing too, another stock that's been talked about a lot is MetaPlanet. I'm going to end up just briefly mention this real quick. I was worried about this stock because it looked a little bit like a tri-star pattern. This is usually a little bit of a bearish pattern here. And you have another candle over here so far for the week that's just kind of going sideways. I worry about weakness. I don't know whether or not I should enter this. This is also over-the-counter stock. It's also foreign-based. A lot of risk are in this. And if you're also looking at the Japanese version of it, it's already made 100x and more. And also on top of that, like they already made 100x from the bottom all the way up to here, right? On top of this, finally hitting a very, very important resistance level up here to 0.786. The power is 0.786, right? If you're hitting 0.786, if you can't push through, then sometimes that could be a cycle top. I'm a little bit worried. I'm not saying that it is. I don't want to stop you from making money or scare you, but I'm just letting you know like what I'm seeing. If you end up pushing through and make all-time, if simply making some like all-time high stuff up here, then I'd be very, very happy for all the bulls that are holding MetaPlanet. But simply the risk that I'm seeing with this one over here just doesn't really justify for me. And I think this is just my decision. You guys just do what is best for you. But this is the reason why I'm not entering this MetaPlanet. Am I bullish on it? I mean, it's above the Tenkan up here. I cannot be that bearish, but I just, at some point, I wonder whether or not you're going to end up having at least some move sideways here for months to kind of digest this big giant move that it just had, right? And that could come into some opportunity calls here as well. I'm not saying that, this is a bearish stock. I don't know. I'm just going to stay away. That's all. All right, guys, 24-minute video, go through a lot of stocks. Hope you enjoy this video. If you do, please give me a like. Let me know. A lot of these stocks like Iron, CleanSpark, Coinbase, MicroStrategy. As far as MetaPlanet, I talk about this every single weekend with Danny's Patreon. If you guys are interested in joining Danny's Patreon to listen to those videos, feel free to do so as well. All right, guys, take care. Bye.